Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Be My Guest, episode number 11. We are moving right along. We have a lot of great shows coming down the road, but we have a really, really awesome guest today, Mr. Rob Thorpe from The Good Trends. We're going to bring him on in a couple seconds to really talk about his story and how it's one that involves him getting a green card in February of this year. So he just kind of snuck into that that green card, I guess, for lack of a better word, the green card getting right before everything kind of shut down. So we're going to talk about that and then dive really into his story within hospitality. But first and foremost, as always, again, I really appreciate all the amazing feedback everyone's been giving me. I'm getting a lot of people reaching out to me wanting to be on the show, especially from that Hospitality Family Facebook group that we talked about in a couple episodes back. So this is actually another interview that was developed out of that. So again, I'm someone who's going to hear Rob's story. At the same time, you're going to hear the story for the first time as we have this discussion. So bring him on real quick. But again, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, my LinkedIn, YouTube, all places you can get Be My Guest, whether it be in the audio version or the video version. So check them out, subscribe, leave some comments, give me some feedback. And of course, if you want to be my guest, reach out to me via Facebook or LinkedIn. I'd love to have you on. Tell your story, add to this great project that we're doing that seems to be helping a lot of people, at least given the feedback that I've been getting. So without further ado, let's bring in Rob Thorpe from The Good Trends. Rob, how are you today?
I'm doing very well, Dave. Thanks very much for having me on the show. Real pleasure.
No, it's my pleasure. You know, again, we really had a brief conversation prior to recording this, so I'm looking forward to hearing your story. But obviously, in a little bit we discussed prior, you mentioned that you got your green card in February. So, and then the world ends, at least in the US, in March. So you get it from the UK. So were you in the UK, as we moved into 2020?
Yes, in and out. I was actually, I've been living in the US since 2015. I was formerly in the Royal Marines, in the British Royal Marines, so in the military, and came over to the US to work with the US Marine Corps down in Quantico for a little while, and then spent 2.5 years as a kind of military diplomat in the British Embassy in DC, having a fantastic time, and then started my green card process. It rumbles on for nearly 2 years. And during that time, I was in and out of the US on tourist visas only, but with very limited chunks of time that you can come in, of course, as a tourist. My wife is American. My family is here. I've got 2 young daughters in this country, so I'm spending time away from them. At one point, nearly a whole year away from them, from the eldest at least. And then eventually, the green card comes through, and then what a year it's been, right? Nobody anticipated that as a consequence. As a result, I'd end up in the US. Bravely looking for work, and then suddenly the field I wanted to enter, hospitality, pretty much just shuts down, doesn't it, overnight, as you well know.
Yeah.
And now there's hundreds of thousands of people furloughed, the whole industry just decimated, and really kind of now you're going to rise from the ashes, I think, in 2021.
Yeah, I mean that's the mindset that we all have to have, right? So, Europe was hit harder with the coronavirus earlier. Right. I won't say they're hit harder overall, but they started to receive a lot of cases and shutdowns earlier than the US. So was there any concern from your side that you're in the UK, you're waiting on this green card, now this is happening in Europe, that you may not be able to get out?
There was actually, it was just getting to that point. In January, February, people were starting to become aware of it. The UK didn't enter any kind of lockdowns, and frankly, has done a couple of lockdowns, but kind of played at it for all manner of political reasons, like you've seen play out over here, right? So we were in very much the same position, but it didn't quite affect me getting in. But I was due to have family come in March, and we left it until 2 weeks before they were due to make their first visit over here, and before we cancelled their trip, because there was just nothing to do. Of course, you remember New York closed down as a city. There was going to be nothing for family to do in the city, right? So there's no point getting them over.
So you mentioned you're away from your daughter for a year, or your family for a year, I should say, 2 young daughters. And one of the things that I think a lot of people have to consider, or probably considering from the hospitality standpoint, is relocation. And I'm going to use myself as an example. Right now, I live in North Jersey. I was working in New York City. There's not many opportunities in this area right now. And my wife and I have had the discussion of, hey, if an opportunity comes up, do I need to leave the family for a period of time? And I'm sure other people are in that same sort of dilemma, or at least having that same type of conversation. So how difficult was that for you to be away from your family? Granted, you're away for a different reason, but how difficult was that for you? How did you get through that?
Yeah, I mean, really, really tough. And I should point out that actually I was only away from one daughter. The second daughter was born in November last year.
Oh, okay.
So I had that period of time away from the eldest, and then was able to be in the country for the second's birth on a tourist visa, and then had to leave again. Right. So there was still that uncertainty around it, and it's tough. It's brutal. I suppose coming from a military background, I was slightly more accustomed than most. It's spending chunks away from my wife, at least, right? And deploying away, you leave family behind, and off you go for 6 to 9 months at a time on a military deployment, right? And I did plenty of those. But I think it just depends on your personal circumstances. Kids are extremely resilient. Although I will say it wasn't without its challenges. Coming back to my eldest daughter after nearly a year away, there was that moment of rediscovery in our relationship. When she was just 3.5 or so when I came back. She's 4.5 now. So and it's taken us probably most of this year to really establish me as a reliable father figure, I think. But kids are resilient. We are resilient, and if it works for you, and there is a need, if you need to move ahead of your family and you need to relocate, then go for it. I don't think any of us should, especially in a country like the US, nobody should feel tied to one particular location. There are clearly lots of anchors. We have community support. We have our friends. We have family. We might have dependent parents who you need to stay close to. But they're all factors. But if the need arises and the opportunity arises, then we should look bravely into those opportunities and go for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that there's obviously a lot of options have to be on the table that may not have been considered before. And like you said, there's so many factors you have to take into that. It's not just as simple as I have a job or I don't, or maybe it is, but try to take into all those factors, but just don't be so closed-minded to it. Maybe it doesn't work out. Maybe it's not the right opportunity, but maybe it's something to at least discuss. So how long were you in the military for, Rob?
I did 18 years. So a fair chunk of time, out of university in the UK, joined the Royal Marines, 2001, and then go through to 2019. And, I just had the most frankly fabulous career. Absolutely loved it. It was only for family reasons that I end up, leaving last year. Because my wife, she's an American, her career is doing extremely well over here. And my career was dragging me back, despite having had these few great years in America. My career was inevitably going to drag me back to the UK. So one of us had to make a choice about where we were going to relocate. So that was it. And, I miss it every day. Of course I do. I miss the camaraderie, and I miss the kind of the mission-driven values and the sense of service, frankly. But it's quite hard to recreate that in the civilian career paths. So it's been good. But now mine is a story of self-reflection and reinvention, I think, which is what lots of mid-career professionals find themselves going through. It's what a lot of people now in the hospitality industry probably need to go through if they are out on furlough or worse, they've lost their jobs, right? So you've got to think about what you're going to do for yourself to get back on track. And it might be that a whole new career path awaits you, and you shouldn't necessarily feel like you just got to tread water until that opportunity comes back at your old hotel or your old restaurant business or whatever it was. You might need to think outside the box, as it were. Potentially it's an opportunity, right? For a lot of people. For me, it was an opportunity. I left the military. I've got all these kind of great generalist skills that I could bring to bear, but I didn't feel I was typecast. I wasn't pigeonholed into any one career field. I looked at, people say, oh, what are you going to do when you leave the military? You're going to go into like defense policy or into security and this kind of stuff. Like, no, I don't do that. There's so much more to me than just being a security guy.
Right.
So I wouldn't mind getting into the hospitality industry, and that had been a great passion of mine, and my pipe dream whenever I left the military was going to be to try to join the hospitality industry. So that was the aim. Yeah.
So, granted, you had reasons to leave the military, but you did have to make a choice to leave a position or a place that you loved, an organization that you loved. Again, even thank you for your service. Of course, it was for the UK military, but it's all the same, right? You're still putting yourself out there in the service of others. Yes, you made the choice to leave for your family, but other people in hospitality probably have to make a similar choice in the sense of leaving the field that they know, leaving the field that they love. And you just kind of alluded to that. So your decision was based on family. I get it. People that may have to make that decision because of necessity or because they're feeling burned by the industry. What went through your mind as you processed that decision? What were some of the things you looked at to make the decision? Obviously, family being the biggest and most influential part. But what are some of the other things you had to take into account before you made that choice to leave? Or was it nothing else? Was it just family first? And that's certainly understandable.
Look, I think it's always going to be family first, right? And there's nothing more important to me in my life. Some people are so career driven, of course. Some people might have opted to pursue their career over family and live with the consequences of that decision. That's not somewhere I was willing to go. And there are other factors. I've mentioned some of them. The other members of the wider family, where they are and their own state of health and everything like that. So whether you have dependent parents and things like that. So we felt we had more anchors as a family. We had more anchors to the US than we did to the UK, and frankly more opportunity as well for both of us. For my wife and I. My wife, as a lawyer returning to London within a niche legal field, might have been more stovepipe and limited in her options than I would have been as a kind of generalist coming to the land of opportunity that is right. America and New York in particular. At least that was my vision in 2019, right? That was like the world is my oyster.
Let's talk about that. February, you get your green card. You decide to leave the military. You're coming over. You get your green card. That has to be very exciting. You're coming to the New York City area, which has a very robust economy at that time. Hotels are jamming. I mean, February was, I think, a record month for a lot of hotels for that same month in other years. The hotel industry as a whole has 1 million open jobs. You have to be so excited and so energetic about what lies ahead of you. You're with your family. You're in the US now. You got your green card. You have an industry that's dying for people to work for them. You have this kind of fast start. And then March and April happen and everything collapses. So take me through your mindset as this is all transpiring from that kind of, I'm assuming, a feeling of elation to a feeling of what just happened.
Yeah, it's elation, excitement, and a lot of hard networking. While over here on this tourist visa, right? So I'm going to things like the HX Symposium at the Javits Center. I'm all over. I'm a bit of a pest on LinkedIn, right? So I'm on LinkedIn a lot, and I'm having these great conversations. I'm meeting great people. I am, you kind of make your own luck, don't you? And there's a snowball effect in these things. So then I get to or land in the UK now, fresh off the boat with my green card in hand. And I'm thinking, okay, now it's a time to convert, to get beyond if you think about career and networking and transition as layers of an onion, right? You're kind of peeling back the get through the gatekeepers of an organization. That's the outer layers, and eventually you're going to get to the decision makers at the core of that onion, who are the people who can make you the job offer. And you potentially needed to have hit up some influence along the way. And I had started doing that. I was starting to get there with a few organizations, which was interesting and fun. And then it just dies overnight. Honestly, everyone's like, Rob, this is going to be really awkward, but you're going to have to look back let's reconsider this in June. We don't know what the future's holding. And I'm sitting here, slightly head in hands, talking of, God, this is a gamble that may not pay off. Maybe I would prefer to have been in London or been back in the UK in the military with the stable income and everything like that. But you've just got to roll with it, haven't you? We made our decision. We're over here now, and I ended up landing on my feet with a tech startup called The Good Trends. And I meet this guy called Victor Mitua, who's one of the co-founders of the company, this brilliant 34-year-old guy from P&G and RB background, right? Kind of house of brands, right? And he's a dad at my kid's school. He says, come for a coffee. I'll tell you about the good trends. I'm like, okay, we'll do that. So we have coffee, and I'm learning more and more, and I'm getting more excited by his passion. And this is it's an online wholesale marketplace selling gourmet foods, right? Small batch craft makers, and its mission is to help independent retailers discover, try, and buy from small batch, craft food makers. And these are brands in their infancy who need a leg up, who want to be discovered. They've got delicious, awesome products. And then you're working on the other hand with this community of independent retailers who need to differentiate themselves because of ever encroaching competition from e-commerce or from Walmart and Trader Joe's and from the huge retail giants that are just going to crush our independent food industry. And all our high streets across America, our town centers are going to disappear potentially as a result. So that's the mission behind this company. And these two guys, Victor and Julien, are just so mission driven by that I really kind of fell for their enthusiasm, and it has provided an opportunity for me to operate as a service provider, on the fringes of the hospitality. Clearly, our core is food retail, so right. A lot of grocers and gourmet stores. But through COVID, we have, and because of my passion for hospitality, to a large extent, we've pivoted in towards hospitality. So we're now working with boutique hotels in Manhattan, apartment buildings that needed to provide a facility to residents. And up in the Hudson Valley, some hotels, small independent inns that wanted to have a slightly more exciting mini bar. So right. that kind of thing. So it's been a fascinating journey.
So it sounds like really since and when did you start with them? Was that what month did you start with them?
I started March 11th.
March 11th. So
yeah.
So you really got
over in February. Yeah.
So you got in, I would say, fairly early.
Yep.
In terms of the COVID pandemic happening over here, because I remember very vividly. February 29th, because it was a leap year, we were sitting there. My hotel was $145K above budget. We're loving life. And it just like March 1st, it was just flipped. Yeah. And everything just started to fall off the books. And to your point, I think a lot of people saw the same thing, and they started saying, okay, we're going to push it back to June, because we all thought June was going to be done by June. I mean, I said it. Yeah. I said, okay, March is going to be hurting, April's going to be trash, May is going to be bad the first 2 weeks, but the second 2 weeks will be ramping up, and June we're back to normal. Obviously didn't happen that way. Your story, it seems like, is a very roller coaster ride of, yay, we're up, really down for a second, and then right back up because you got something really quickly because you were so open to that networking and those opportunities. So how did you keep yourself in this proper mindset to be receiving of those potential opportunities from I won't say an unlikely place, but certainly a unique type of place where it's just a guy who goes to who's a dad of a kid at your school? Or your kid's school?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of it was just maintaining the discipline. So right, I've got my green card. I land back in the US in February, and it's about a month before I start working with Victor and Julien. And during that time, I'm still open to all opportunities. Really, I haven't. Whilst I want to be in hospitality, I was still looking at finance. I was still looking at consulting. I was still looking at other random business, really random business, including the security sector. I hadn't completely discounted various security jobs that were out there. So I'm really looking all over. And there's a certain amount of being disciplined about the hunt, right? The job search, and being open to the conversations and seeing where they lead. And this one has led to a very positive state. And I will say, very transparently, I joined, and the guys took me on knowing that it was going to be a kind of stopgap. It was going to be a lily pad for me. And I joined on almost a part-time basis, cash in hand, basically do it on a commissioned basis for the work I was doing. And we said, we'll review things in June. June, things hadn't got better. So I was like, well, I'll stick with you a little bit longer. And we've just kind of nudged it forward. And then come August, they offer me a partnership in the business. And so, wow. which has been great, and we're very early stage. Things are growing every month in spite of COVID. So things are heading in the right direction. We're a very small team, very lean, but doing some really good stuff that I believe in. I believe in the mission. And I like the fact that I'm still helping people on a daily basis get their businesses where they need to, and make connections between, the little independent store owners up in New Hampshire, in rural communities, who are finding these incredible brands around them that they wouldn't otherwise have discovered.
Right. Right. You've been saying a lot of great things, and excuse me. And I think it ties a lot into, you can see this passion you have for this company just coming to the screen. At least I feel so. But you really also have just such a great mindset and great energy, but a very driven, right? You didn't. The one thing you haven't mentioned this entire time is that, geez, I'm sorry, is that you let COVID or the situation get you down, right? And that's not to say that you didn't get down. I'm sure everybody does, but you seem to kind of just drive. It seems like you just drove right through those feelings, that you didn't really let them. I'm very sorry for this throat. I got a little frog in my throat, but you didn't let them take advantage or take a hold of you. So you said you wanted to get into hospitality originally. You're with the Good Trends now, which seems like a great place for you. As you're moving through all of this, and again, that roller coaster of emotions, what kind of skills do you think translated from your military background to what you would take to the hospitality industry and the way that you've been able to kind of approach all of these things?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. Right? I'll show you something I keep in my wallet.
Let me put you in the one shot so people can see.
Yeah. So you want me to keep talking, right? You're going to get
sure. Yeah, sure. I just want to put you in the one shot so people can see what you're going to show.
Yeah, great. So I'm just going to pull out of my wallet, right? This little values card I carry. There are two things I carry everywhere in my wallet that have sentimental value, right? One is this little business card from the Royal Marines that outlines our commando values, a commando spirit, and commando mindset, right? And a little anecdote. I pulled this out when I'm chatting with Victor over coffee about the Good Trends, and he's talking about his company values. And I'm like, these resonate with me, Victor, because they're so similar to the ones I hold dear, right? Excellence, integrity, self-discipline, and humility. And he's like, and he took a photo of this, and he's like, I want that. I want those. They are our values.
Hold up.
Yeah. So it's just, it's this little kind of cheesy. Let me get those a bit too bright here.
We can see it.
There you go. And then you got this steely-eyed dealer of death commando on the back, right, with his commando mindset. So look, I think it's not so much about the skill set, but about the mindset and the values that you bring to bear. And I wanted to be in business, surround myself with awesomely talented people. I'm doing that. Be people oriented, outward facing in the business. Be people oriented, and be able to throw my passion and my energy and enthusiasm into something. And if you can provide members of a team with that opportunity, they tend to thrive, right? They tend to get after it. People in the military are very mission driven. Give them a mission and they will ruthlessly pursue that. And we're good, kind of natural planners. It's drilled into us from day one in the military, the detail. How are you going to plan this? So they're skills, right? But I think more it's about the mindset.
I love that. I love what you just said. That's the mind. It's more the mindset than the skill set, because, in a lot of ways, various skills can be taught, but if you don't have that mindset, it doesn't really matter. Would you say that that's accurate?
Yeah, I think so. And I did do a period of upskilling myself, right? But I went to Columbia Business School and did a corporate finance course there. Put myself well outside my comfort zone. I mean, I am terrible at maths. I do not understand finance. I've never done a finance job within the military. And then I'm in, Columbia with all these finance guys and accountants who are themselves upskilling. That was tough. And then I went to online learning with Cornell, did eCornell's hospitality management course, and kind of crashed myself through that, which was brilliant to pick up the language and the terminology and some of the basic revenue management skills behind the hospitality industry. And I've lent on those. They are what I would call hard skills. And then it's the softer, the kind of more esoteric skills that I bring to bear as well.
Love it. So, question for you, coming from, again, a military background, and I don't want to keep harping on the military side of things, but we talk on previous episodes about getting out of your comfort zone, trying something new, really kind of expanding yourself in this time, because you have that opportunity. From your mindset, if you're someone, and of course there are physical requirements, age requirements, but if you're someone who's in hospitality that may be a little bit younger and you're stuck, and you're really having a trouble finding where to go right now because the industry has been so devastated, would you say that maybe getting into the military for like a stopgap, maybe a couple years while things reset, would be advantageous to people?
Yeah, I mean, why not, right? Things are the military is growing. You see the defense budget pretty much increasing every year, especially over the last 4 years. There are some incredible opportunities, incredible adventure, frankly, especially for somebody, who doesn't have maybe the ties or the responsibilities of a family. If you're in your early 20s, let's say, and you want to have an adventure and you want to push yourself and get outside your comfort zone, I think you could go. I don't know what the minimum engagement time is in the US military, but why not? It's a great career with great opportunities. You will get to travel the world a bit. You will be pushed, and I think you would return. The hospitality industry will always be there. If after a few years you go, actually, I want to be back in hospitality, I think you'd return to the industry as a more rounded, more confident person with better leadership skills, with different team skills, with just different transferable skills that you'd bring to bear, and you'd probably find you'd get a career acceleration out of it when you return. And I think the same applies. It goes both ways. There are all those people in the military, because of what I've just said, that you'd return to the hospitality industry with these great skills. There are people who have never been in the hospitality industry but have just known the military. They might wish to consider the hospitality industry, or conversely, the hospitality industry would do well to look at the military, as a talent pool. Right. To draw its new recruits from. Now it's tough at the moment because, of course, there's a glut of talent out there waiting to get back into the industry. But I went at the HX Symposium 2019. I remember one of the panel discussions. Somebody said, we're really struggling for talent, and it was actually Veterans Day, and I put my hand up and said, look, it's Veterans Day today. There's 400,000 US service people every year leaving the US military. It's a massive number. Can you imagine that amount of churn through the US military? Some of them have got the talent you need. So you do well to look into those 400,000 people and see how you can recruit them. Just in the same way that the banks do, the huge consultancies do. They have their own military recruitment drives. Right. I think it's a missed trick.
And I think some of the bigger companies, especially, at least they have had the scale to promote it, have been trying to drive that effort. I mean, again, this is prior to COVID, but that seems like what you were trying to do, right? You're in the military for 18 years and you're trying to take that leap into hospitality. So what were you looking to do when you got into hotels? Where were you trying to go to start your hospitality career? What was your first goal?
Really, that was almost like the key question for me to answer through all of my networking, was what was going to be my entry point. And probably my background in the military meant that I was going to end up in some kind of corporate role, would have been where I probably optimized the skills I had, but also would optimize my earning potential, right? So there's a kind of balance there. My heart is very much on the kind of operation, that kind of front end of hospitality. I want to be at the point of service delivery, looking after guests. I find it extremely gratifying to see people happy, to build short-term relationships, right? Have somebody stay in your hotel, know when they check out, know that they had the best time, that you exceeded their expectations, that you kind of joined I don't know, you've probably read Setting the Table by Danny Meyer, right? He's one of my great business. Oh, he's a business hero of mine, right? And of course, with Union Square Hospitality book. So Setting the Table by Danny Meyer, I recommend to everybody. Anybody in business should read this, because nearly all businesses are focused around how they look after their customers. And in his case, of course, it's about how we treat our guests. But it's absolutely key. Yeah, Setting the Table by Danny Meyer, brilliant book. And learning from him and just how to create a better guest experience, and link it back from having happy staff, from putting yourself at the heart of a community, people, having staff that are motivated every day, that smile, that give the best of themselves to your business, but primarily it's about to the guests. I wanted to be able to do that, and I wanted to. I think I have something to give to the hospitality industry in terms of setting a culture within a small team, right? Within a hotel, where every single member of staff understands what their mission is every day, right. And you kind of, that becomes quite pervasive, and let's infuse the team to do better. And that would have been good. So I wanted to find some way into the hospitality industry that would have given me a kind of fast track to general management, frankly. And that may sound arrogant. I do know a few people who have become general managers in a relatively short space of time, but I know there are no guarantees, right? So there was an element of, right, I'm going to have to eat some humble pie and just go in and see where I roll the dice and see where I end up.
Well, yeah, and again, a lot of things have unfortunately changed in the last several months in terms of the ability to kind of move up that ladder quickly. You know, I was able to move up fairly quickly from a lot of things. One is hard work, a lot of off the hours, off the clock education. You talked about doing the Cornell stuff. I did some stuff similar, but it was also a part of luck. That was positions were opened near me at the right time with the right people because there was such a lack of talent and there were so many open opportunities, and that's all been flipped now. So we talk a lot about on both this podcast and on No Vacancy. You have to be an entrepreneur now to get a job, right? You have to be an entrepreneur for yourself. And it's not just as simple as just going on H Careers or Indeed or Hospitality Online and pressing apply, putting in your resume and sending it off. And you mentioned a little bit earlier in the show that you're networking with people. You're reaching out to people on LinkedIn. You're reaching out to executives and peeling back those layers. And that's really how you can make that impression. So give me an idea of some of the steps that you took, some of the ways that, some of the mental or the mindset that went into that, how you found the right people and how you were able to peel back those layers. So somebody that may want to do something similar maybe has a little roadmap to do that.
I think the first one is confident, right? There's a certain degree that is just confidence to reach out to somebody, and you'll get a lot of rejection. A lot of people will just ignore you, and that's fine, right? Be robust, be thick-skinned about that. Don't take anything personally, but keep going, keep sending those emails, look at your own network maybe first, look at who you do know and who might be able to make an introduction to somebody. And once you've got that first introduction, ask at the end of the conversation, hopefully you've had a good conversation, say, who can you introduce me to next? This is what I think I want, at least from that conversation. Maybe I don't know where I want to end up, but this is what I'd like to learn about next. And I went and had coffee with the CEO of Burger King UK, right? And we sit in an office in London, and he tells me all about quick service restaurants, and he tells me about innovation. And he gave me that time, and then I joined him for like a staff lunch. So I'm in his office for about an hour.
Is that all coming from LinkedIn? Like just you reached out to him and just
that is coming from the networking on LinkedIn. So somebody I knew this one guy called Nick, his name was, and then Nick then puts me on to. He said, "Oh, I've got an old buddy who's at Burger King. I think he's a CEO now. Al Murdoch is his name." And he's like, "Okay, go chat to Al." And he runs 400 Burger Kings across the UK. So yeah, those kind of things can happen, do happen. And you just keep going, right? It's a bit like playing a game of 3-dimensional chess or something like that. You just keep moving the pieces without. And I didn't have any huge strategy, but just follow the leads and see where they go.
Wow, that's so powerful. It really is, because I love it. I mentioned, listen, people are going to ignore you. People are going to reject you. Would you say that you got more rejections and ignores than you got positive responses?
Yeah, but and undoubtedly, there was something. Tapping into your initial network is easy, and you say, "Look, I'm in the military." I think finding the hook, right? People in this country, in particular, love to help veterans, so that opened doors for me. What's important? I tell you what, right now. Being in the hospitality industry, seeing the profile that has in the media and the way the hospitality industry has been affected by COVID, it's almost like being a healthcare, first responder, right? You're on the front lines of an industry that is being hit hard. Yeah. So if I was in the hospitality industry and looking to do networking, I would not be afraid of saying, "Look, this is my situation. I'm furloughed. This is an industry I want to get into. These are the positions I'm looking at. It's a tough situation. Is there anything? Can we have 5 minutes next week?" And keep it really short. Just say, "Look, can I have 5 minutes of your time for an informational interview? I want to learn more about what you do." And push hard. And I think people are prepared to give you the time of day. And I know, from my part, if anyone watching your show wants to connect with me, I'm very happy to do that. I will always pay it forward. I will always have a longer conversation about my experience of networking hospitality, or indeed, the military, or kind of general leadership and management topics, or whatever I can share, I will try and share.
And I'll say this, and I've been in hotels for coming up on 8 years now. And I've worked in various industries. There's never been an industry that I've experienced that people are from all levels will go out of their way to help you. I mean, hospitality runs really deep in a lot of these people that are in hospitality industry, especially at higher levels, because it's a very hard industry. And if you don't have that passion for it, you probably won't get to those upper levels. You just probably will leave before you get to that chance. So I've been able to, in line with you, Rob, talk to some amazing people that have been so open and so willing to just have a conversation that I never would have been able to get in contact with or had that conversation with if it wasn't for networking, if it wasn't for making those connections. And the cool thing about the world right now is LinkedIn is one easy way to connect with so many people across so many different industries at so many different levels. And you're, for the most part, at the click of a button away from a direct line of communication to them. That prior to the internet, that was never possible, right? It's probably fair to say that you would not be able to have the lunch with the CEO of Burger King if it wasn't for that social connection that we now have at our fingertips, on our phones, on our computers. Take advantage of that. I mean, that's being the entrepreneur for yourself. It doesn't mean going and starting a business. It means taking your own destiny into your own hands and going out there and taking that extra effort and using the tools that you have to your advantage and making connections that you never would have been able to make prior. And that will open so many doors for you. And again, Rob, you met your current partners at the Good Trends through
just happenstance and lucky networking, really, outside the school gates, that kind of
right. But if you didn't have those networking skills developed prior to that, maybe that opportunity doesn't develop the way it did. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. And as I said, right, I joined the Good Trends, great organization, really loving it. But I joined the organization really just to see me through COVID. That was the mindset. And we were, the founders and I were very transparent about that. And it's only because things are growing and that I'm enjoying it so much that I've taken on a partnership in the business. And then now we just look extremely optimistically into 2021. Right?
You said it right there, Rob. You said it right there. Listen, everybody out there, and I sometimes have to tell myself the same thing. We're in a really big pile of doo-doo, for lack of a better term. Expand yourself. Try to get a different role. Try something. This is the time to try a new department. Try a new field. Even if you go in there saying, like Rob said, I'm just going to go in there part-time for maybe 2 or 3 months just to pass over, to bridge the gap, and then I'm going to go back to hospitality. And he fell in love with it. And you hear that passion as he talks about the company. You may find the same thing. You may not, but you may. You may say, okay, I'm going to try doing something completely different in a new realm, and I'm going to do it for 2 months, 3 months till the hospitality industry is back. And you get there, you say, wow, this is awesome. And I've said this a lot, and Rob, I think you're going to be a prime example of this. There's a lot of people that are 10 years from now going to be doing something with their lives, whether it be career, personal, professional, whatever it is, that look back and say, wow, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for COVID. COVID is what put me on this path.
Yeah.
It goes back to that original point you said at the top, mindset. What's your mindset? So Rob, tell me about the Good Trends. Tell me about the company, what you're doing with them, and how that's kind of scratching that hospitality itch you had.
Yeah, great. Thanks very much for the segue. In fact, just before we go on to that, I think, if I may, it's too easy, isn't it, to focus on the negatives of COVID, right? And as you say, we're all in a big pile of doo-doo, but there are some macro and some micro positives that come out. Macro, look at the way your industry is innovating and becoming really. I was listening to Mike Schatzberg's podcast the other day, and he had a restaurant CEO on who was saying they've gone from these huge financial overheads to cutting it right down at a kind of macro level, working out what was most important in their business and making themselves into a lean kind of tech-driven company. And then I think about the micro level. I've had dinner with my family every single night for the last 9 months. Like, that never happened.
How many hotel people out there can say the same thing?
Who can take a break now? You work from home. My wife and I are both upstairs here in the attic. You can see behind me all day, every day. It gets to like 5:30. We go and do the school run. We sit down. We have family dinner, and then we go back to work again. And that's become our new lifestyle, but I love it. I love that I'm there romping around on the sofa with the kids and connecting as a family. So take that moment for self-reflection and look at the positives in COVID as well as just focusing on the negatives. All right, now onto the good trends. So look, it's a tech-enabled, human first. I love reassuring the guys of that and reminding them of that. Wholesale marketplace for these gourmet foods, right? And so we're working with gourmet food stores, grocers, small supermarkets, no big chains, just independent business owners. But hotels started coming to us in COVID because they wanted to differentiate their food and beverage offering. And we don't do any alcohol, but we've got a number of drinks on the site, non-alcoholic beverages. And working with these small batch makers to set up lobby pantries or mini bars, or maybe get something slightly different in the spa and wellness center, or it's the bar snacks. We're working with breweries, wineries, we're working with kind of resort hotels as well, and then apartment buildings who wanted to have this on-site 24/7 contactless retail facility that we've enabled. We've thought, okay, that's something we can do. Let's do it. Let's set it up. We're such a small team ourselves that we can be extremely agile. We innovate with the product we've got, and we see the opportunities and go for it. So the hospitality industry can, and I think increasingly must, differentiate its product through food and beverage. If you look at the way millennials, Generation Zers care about food, the flavor preferences, even between those two generations, there are different preferences. Some of the higher end hotels now are even starting to customize the mini bars dependent on the client, the incoming client, right? That's really clever. So you're looking at people's purchasing history, their online activity, and when room service come through in the morning, they change the room, they're putting in a different list of foods than the ones that were there for the previous guests, who maybe they were baby boomers, and so they had ginger biscuits and a cup of tea, English breakfast tea or whatever they had, right?
Right.
And now you've got some non-GMO soy-based goodie, whatever it is, for somebody else, that kind of thing. It's really clever, and we're at the forefront of helping clients do that.
I love that. I love that because even prior to COVID, a lot of things were transitioning to more craft beers, more locally sourced materials, right? And through challenges like this time comes innovation. And I think the good trend sounds like it's in a good position to be that innovator and really diversify a lot of those market pantries that used to be, or probably would just be, Lay's potato chips and a couple Kit Kats and a Twix bar. Now you can really have some unique offerings in there from your local community that will enhance that guest experience, right?
It enhances the guest experience. It enhances your own brand, right? You're putting your business at the heart of a thriving community. And some of the trends looking into 2021, right? It's diet. There's still a lot of diet-based preferences. So keto, organic, still on the rise. Purpose-driven, women-owned, Black-owned, minority-owned businesses. People, your guests expect to see those, and they expect you as a hospitality brand to be championing those businesses. So if you are selling a Twinkie bar and Lay's chips, it just doesn't cut it anymore, frankly.
Right.
At least depending on the sector you're in, right? So yeah, I think you need to think about. You need to look at the brand and your offering holistically and say, right, every single aspect, every single edifice, or every single visual representation of my brand that is on display in my business needs to say something about who we are as a brand.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great way to end. First things first, though, before we go, Rob, you are now across the pond. It's Generation Z. Generation Z.
I know, Generation Z, right?
Z.
I'd have to look at who coined that phrase, right? I'm sure it was an American. Yeah, Generation Z. I'll get there.
No. I'm just messing with you. That's why, I've had a couple of people from the UK that I've worked with, and they would always say Z, and we would always just have little jokes back and forth. Yeah. But, Rob, a lot of great things you said here. A lot of great things I think people can take away from this. Any final words from you towards the viewers?
No, I mean, I think in my last few minutes there, we kind of touched on some really important things, right? Don't allow COVID to be an opportunity. Don't just see it as a doo-doo trap, right? Take the time for reflection. Work out whether, if you were in hospitality and you're on furlough, work out whether are you just waiting for the hospitality sector to open back up and go back into your old job, or are you sitting there thinking, maybe I wasn't happy anyway. Maybe there was something else I wanted to do, right? Use this as an opportunity to leapfrog onto the next challenge in your life. Try to be as optimistic as possible. And then, selfishly from my own business perspective with the Good Trends, if there are food and beverage directors, if there are revenue managers who want to learn more, then please get in touch. I'd love to tell you about the mission we're on. We're a young startup. We've been going a year and a half, full of enthusiasm. We've got a good story to tell, and I'd love to tell it. Thanks, Dave.
Rob, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate being my guest.
All right.
Wow. What a great conversation that was. I mean, Rob is a guy, like I said, he's on a roller coaster of emotions. He gets his green card in February. He's ready to get into that hospitality job market. He just left his 18-year career in the military. He's in the U.S. with his family, and then COVID happens, and he is able to push through, find a temporary job that he now loves and is a partnership part of, there's such a great story there. And he offered this up kind of in the middle of the show of, if you're someone out there who's struggling with something, if you're feeling lost, if you're feeling down, if you have any questions, Rob gave you that opening to reach out to him. So take advantage of that. In fact, Rob, we're going to bring you back on for one quick sec. Rob, tell me how people could reach out to you in that scenario.
The easiest thing is on LinkedIn, Rob Thorpe. You can, email me at robthorpe@thegoodtrends.com, right? I'm not going to give out my cell phone, but yeah, you've got my professional email there, robthorpe@thegoodtrends. Rob@thegoodtrends.com, rob@thegoodtrends.com, or on LinkedIn. Just have a look for me. I'm sure when you post this, Dave, you just put a link to my name and people can click on it and find my profile.
Yep, we're going to be tagging you on that for sure. So yeah, take advantage of that. Again, it's all about community. This whole endeavor of Be My Guest is about establishing more of a community that we can all help each other get through these things. And Rob's story is a great example of that, of driving through, expanding yourself, getting out of your comfort zone, trying something new, and finding a passion. And I think anybody who watches can hear the passion Rob has for the Good Trends coming through the screen. If you're a hotel that wants to diversify your offerings, reach out to Rob. I think the Good Trends sounds like a really great endeavor where you can get some really unique product in your market, in your restaurant, to your guests that can make that stay a little more unique for the guests versus just having the same offerings they go no matter where they are. And that can really make that stay stand out and be that place that they remember forever. So I can't really appreciate or thank Rob enough for joining. I think the story was amazing. I thank you guys enough for joining us for another episode of Be My Guest. Again, same thing. Reach out to me on any of the social channels. Follow us on any of the social distribution channels. I would love to hear from you if you want to come on and be my guest. Otherwise, we will see you next week with another great episode. And thank you so much.